Hey, James,
What's
you
up?
like apples?
Yeah.
Well, I got a number. How do you like them apples?
Whose number?
You know whose. Skyla's.
I have no idea whose number you got.
If you guys can guess, we are doing Good Will Hunting today.
It's going to be an epic one. We love Good Will Hunting. This is a beloved film. Came out in 1997, directed by Gus Van Sant. Screenplay by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. It's 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, but obviously we take Rotten Tomatoes with a grain of salt, but it's still exceptional. 8.3 on IMDb. It is listed at number 86 on the IMDb user all-time list of films of all time. You can stream it right now on Hulu and Stars, or you can rent it on Amazon Prime. And, you know, we really, really love this movie. Obviously, we watched this a lot when we were kids.
Yeah, we actually did.
But, you know, we're from Massachusetts, so, you know, basically our lives were like Will Hunting. And I was Will Hunting. Anthony was Casey Affleck's character.
No, not even close. You're Cole Hauser. I'm Lambeau.
You're Lambeau.
But okay, so just to clear it up, we did not grow up in Southie, but we grew up in the Boston area. But we were in like the cool, rough neighborhood of Southie. In Boston, it's actually cooler to be from the worst neighborhoods. It's like a respect thing and a street thing. Like when you hear someone's from a rough neighborhood like Southie or Charlestown or Lowell, it's like, oh, whoa, did you hear that guy's from Lowell? So we were just outside the city, but we really related to this film because the Boston humor is very specific. We all talk in a certain way, and you know it's very like you're always beating up on your friends and giving each other shit,
Busting chops all day.
Yeah, so
we still do it every day.
Yeah, exactly. So when I watch this movie, it feels like I'm back home, and it's one of my favorite movies because of that reason. And Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were really incredible with how they wrote this film to really capture what the Boston culture is like.
Yeah, the plot of this movie is, I think, nothing short of remarkable. It's a pretty brilliant idea. It's relatable to anyone who's grown up in a city or in poverty. Setting in South Boston is great. It's not as bad as it used to be. Obviously, it's gone through gentrification over the last decade or so. So, like the last 5 years especially, Southie isn't really what Southie used to be. But it used to be, you know, considered one of the toughest neighborhoods in America. Very Irish. And, you know, if you weren't from there, you weren't really accepted no matter what you looked like. But, you know, Boston's a rich city in terms of history and culture. And, you know, there's more than just crime stories, and that's why I really like this film, because it's focused on the really interesting character of Will Hunting, who's this super genius born in South Boston and grew up an orphan.
It is a really amazing concept, and I think this is one of the best screenplays ever written. And Matt Damon actually came up with the idea, the initial idea, for a theater class. He was writing a play, and he was going to school. He was going to college at Harvard. And
At Harvard, kid?
Yeah.
Cambridge?
Yeah.
So this is a Harvard bar, huh? I thought there'd be all sorts of equations in the wall.
But so he wrote this for a theatrical play class, and I think his classmates didn't even like it. But then he got really passionate about it, and then he dropped out of Harvard with only one semester left to go because he felt confident that he and Ben Affleck could turn this into a script. Now he and Ben they were acting for years. They were child actors, and you know, commercials, small parts in movies. And Matt Damon was even in The Rainmaker, Francis Ford Coppola's film, and also Courage Under Fire with Denzel Washington. He had a supporting role, and so he had been in some pretty major films, but he was still very unknown.
Yeah,
he didn't get paid much for those movies, so he was still like working his way out. And Ben Affleck also working his way up, doing small parts, trying to find their way in Hollywood. And so they actually wrote the script together after Matt brought him his initial ideas, and they would write like across the country when they were both working in different acting projects. They would literally fax each other like new scenes, like, hey, I added this dialogue or I added this scene, and because this is before, you know, computers and email and smartphones, they were literally faxing each other pages of Good Will Hunting to each other
mid-90s
from across the country, and then they got the original script done. And Good Will Hunting's original story was going to be an action thriller, very much like an espionage film where, you know, Will Hunting is a genius and the government wants him or some other reason. It's supposed to be very suspenseful and very action-packed. And they got it to a couple of producers, and one producer in particular said, this idea is amazing, but the execution doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like it should be an action thriller. Try and make it more nuanced. Try and make it about, you know, the personal journey of the character and the emotional journey of the character. And so Ben Affleck and Matt Damon rewrote the script and made it very small, very intimate. And that, I think, is what really makes this movie amazing, is the character development, the personal journey that all these characters go through, especially Will. And I think that if this was any kind of thriller action movie, it would not have worked.
Now, before we continue, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast is to become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Now that we're both officially full-time on the show, you all are paying for the bills. You keep the lights on for the show, so thank you so much to all of our incredible patrons. You'll get podcast schedules, personalized videos, podcast shout-outs, which we'll be doing the top-tier Patreon shout-out on this episode at the end, so stay tuned for that. Plus, you have access to weekly bonus episodes that post every Wednesday, as well as merch and giveaways and stuff like that. We're also launching a podcast masterclass in about a week or so get tuned for that. If you're thinking about starting a podcast, if you already have a podcast, we're going to show you all the tricks to the trade, everything we've learned along the way, how we went from 43 downloads our first month to 260,000 downloads in October. So it's been a journey, and we want to share all of our secrets with you and help improve your show if you already have one or start a new show. It's a 22-chapter course. It's very in-depth. Head on over to RaidersOfTheLostPodcast.com to see all of our sources of content, our merch, movie posters that we've made. Our new beanies just came out. They're pretty awesome. And follow, subscribe wherever you're listening and tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in around the world.
We're also going to do a free movie poster giveaway later in this episode, so stay tuned for that.
Now let's get back into Good Will Hunting. And since you're talking about the idea in the original screenplay and how they came up with it, the original versions of Good Will Hunting also had the character of Will as a physics prodigy at first rather than mathematics. But they talked to mathematicians and physicists, and they came to the conclusion that physics is more of a collective project or collective study. You know, groups of people do things and achieve things together, whereas mathematics, you know, mathematicians will spend decades alone working on problems and working on theorems. So it made more sense if he's a loner to be a mathematical genius, but he's also, you know, like photographic memory and stuff like that. And also, it's speculated that the character of Will Hunting is based on a real person, a child prodigy named William Sidis, who was born in Boston, Massachusetts in 1898, who had exceptional mathematical abilities. He went to MIT at age 8. He was at Harvard Mathematics at age 16, law school at age 17, so he was just a prodigy, and his IQ was estimated to be, I think, around 250 to 300, which is probably where Will's is in this movie, which is like one or two people on the planet are probably around there.
And you could also say it was definitely inspired by the character, the person, the mathematician that he tells Sean about, that Sean tells Lambeau about, and Lambeau tells Sean about later in the film.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, I can't remember, but it's definitely going to be inspired by that too.
Yeah, and I mean, Albert Einstein's was about 200, so I think Will Hunting, you could say his IQ is probably about 50 to 100 points higher than Albert Einstein. Same thing with this Sidis person. And Sidis ended up, you know, avoiding the spotlight, and he was kind of a huge celebrity locally and nationally for his genius intellect. And so I don't know, I'm not sure, he wrote some books, but I think he was mostly like secretive about what he did, kind of like Will Hunting in the film.
I really love the depiction of the intelligence in this movie, and you know, there are ways to depict intelligence. Like I really love how Sherlock, they visually show you what's going on in Sherlock's mind in the TV series. And with this film, you know, it's very nuanced, and Gus Van Sant's directing is really excellent. Like Will is able to, they don't really tell you what he's doing, but you see it through action. Like when he's reading a book, he literally goes page to page and is like laughing, and you can tell he's reading a book just from looking at each page and glancing at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the way he can just write mathematical equations that seem extremely complex without a problem, without hesitation. I think the approach to his intelligence is really fascinating in this film. Also, like counting the seconds on that clock. So I think they did a great job of not dumbing it down and not spoon feeding the audience by showing how intelligent he was. And also, probably the best scene is when he defeats that bully at the bar by reciting these word-for-word verbatim passages from different textbooks, and he knows exactly what library to get a certain book and what page it is. So these are great ways to show his intelligence rather than just saying, you could have a character say, oh, Will is like the most incredibly smart person I've ever seen within the first minute, and like he's a genius, but they don't do that.
Yeah.
We see it happen, and then Sean and Lambeau discuss his intelligence like halfway through the film.
I think it's really clever because it kind of reminds me of a quote from Sean in the film where he says, no one can understand the depths of you. You're a genius. No one denies that. And so I think it would be unfair to the audience to try to show what Will's mind is like and his problem-solving abilities and what goes on in his brain, because no one could possibly understand the depths of somebody like that. That super-duper smart, like, it's a different kind of human being, you know? They're living in a different dimension internally inside their mind. Like, they think on a different level than we could ever imagine. Like the things that go on through their head, you can never fathom, you know? So I think it's smart to not show like how he's doing things, but just that he can do them. And I think the first time we see it is when he leaves the bar early with Chucky and the boys because he like wants to go home. He says he's tired, but he wants to go home to try to solve that problem that he saw on the chalkboard. And that I think is just the way to show like his interest and obsession with his intelligence, but the fact that he's keeping it secret.
And his interest comes from his innate ability to his incredible mind. And he's like he has to feed it constantly. You know what I mean? Like he tries to like hang out with his friends as much as he can, and he tries to like be a normal guy. He's always trying to just be one of the guys. But that's a great example of he can't help but solve this problem. Once he sees it, he has to solve it. And because his mind is so vast, he always needs to fill it up. And that's why like Skylar jokes about like, you actually do this for fun? Like, how is this fun?
The biology.
Yeah, like,
organic biology.
Yeah,
who does it? We do it for kicks.
Yeah,
it's a great time.
Yeah, exactly. But that's just how his mind works. Like he tries to be someone else, but ultimately, I think that by the end of this movie, he finally accepts that he is special. I think that's his biggest fault. Like that's one of his biggest journeys is accepting himself, accepting and understanding. I am different. I am unique. I am special. I have something no one else has, and it takes the entire story for him to embrace that. And then once he does, I think he'll be much more at ease with himself.
Yeah, but just for a second, let's talk about Gus Van Sant because he does such an incredible job directing this movie. I don't know if it would have been as good if anyone else did it. He's just, I think, just such a patient filmmaker. When you watch this film, he takes his time. There's a lot of dialogue-heavy scenes in this movie, very long scenes, and a lot of talking. And I mean, how many therapy sessions are there between Will and Sean? Those are some of my favorite scenes in like cinema history, is watching them two in therapy together inside that room or at the duck pond in
even
city.
Showing him taking the train, riding the train for like a minute, a montage. Like most directors, you don't have to show that, but he, like you said, he's a very patient filmmaker, and he makes you feel like you're a part of this group. Like also just filming them in the car during their drives, like there's no dialogue going on, there's no plot happening, but it's just the crew driving across Boston, and it makes you feel like you're there.
And I love the way he filmed it. There are a ton of these very long takes, long shots where the camera's moving very slowly just around the characters, and it's really interesting because it makes you feel like you're observing from the outside, almost like a play kind of, but like where you're just walking around a conversation of people like at a table. He does it with a lot of these dialogue heavy scenes. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I love how the camera, he does that a lot in the hallway scenes, like when he's looking at the problem and solving it, and when he's mopping, just the camera kind of just slowly tracks to the side.
Lots of long takes with the frame changing, like Paul Thomas Anderson filming.
Yeah, but it's his best movie. I've seen all of Gus Van Sant's films, and he's made some really, really great ones, but Good Will Hunting is just such a special movie. It is the peak of his career, of his great career, and it's hard to, I still can't believe, looking back on this film, like how did this not win anything else except for writing and supporting actor? Like this, I think this should have won Best Picture, and I think it definitely could have possibly won Best Director.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, and I think one of the greatest strengths to it, besides the script obviously and the directing, is the music. Now, Danny Elfman, he did like the original themes and tracks for it, but I think there's only 2 songs they did, like the opening and I think the outro he did. But he created this great, beautiful, like magical theme for Will Hunting, and it's filled with wonder and all sorts of cool instruments.
You hear the music when he's doing math.
Yeah.
That's when you hear it mostly, outside from the intro and opening. When he's doing mathematics, you hear the Danny Elfman music.
But also, in this film, Gus Van Sant, he used particularly one musician's music as kind of like the soul of the film. This musician named Elliott Smith. He's an acoustic singer and guitarist. And there are very few examples where a musician's music acts as like the soul of a film like here. And I'm not talking like a movie like Her, where Arcade Fire was tapped to make the original score for that. I'm talking about a musician's original music that they've already made being used in a film extensively. It reminds me of Sufjan Stevens and the importance of his music in Call Me By Your Name, with those songs like Visions of Gideon at the end and stuff like that. And so,
also Simon and Garfunkel in The Graduate.
Great point too. But also, again, they were tapped to write the music for that film.
Yeah,
I think.
they did an entire album just for that movie.
But that's different. So I'm talking about. So that's more of like Arcade Fire with Her.
So with this, they used Elliott Smith's music was already made before
he was
the movie?
already. Yeah. So like they just used his songs for this.
Got it.
Call Me By Your Name, I think, is a another example of that. But Elliott Smith. There's like 5 or 6 songs that he has in this movie, and it really acts as the soul of the film because, like you said, with the original script of it being like action-heavy thriller, like, oh, it's fast-paced, but then Elliott Smith, it's really melancholy and dramatic, and it really adds so much to the depth of Will Hunting and his character and the mood of the film because at the end of the story, it's really a love film. It's a love story at the end. Really,
it's a great romantic film. I think a lot of people don't understand how romantic it is.
It's really relatable in terms of romantic relationships.
Yeah, like him and Skylar, like the dates they go on, they feel like super realistic. Like them just goofing off, and the conversation seems so natural, and the dialogue seems so natural. I think that Ben and Matt did a really sensational job of like. It feels like this is what a date is like. If you've ever been on a date, you guys are just goofing off. You're trying to make each other laugh. You're trying to be charming. You're enjoying each other's company rather than like the typical like small talk you might hear in another film. It really feels like these are real people on a date.
And also, people on first dates like to hide everything, all the skeletons in their closet, which Will Hunting does this entire film to Skylar, constantly lying to her, lying to other people, lying about having, 12 older brothers and living with 2 or 3 of them, and that she'll meet them, and not that he's completely broke, that he grew up as an orphan, that he was abused extensively, which is one of the reasons why he constantly gets off of all the crimes he has. But, I think the concept of the film, and then, again, the mood and the atmosphere is just sustained with the incredible music throughout it.
Yeah, and, I mean, Will is constantly using things like that as a defense mechanism. He's preventing people from getting close to him. He's lying to Skylar, lying to his friends. I'm sure the guys don't even know he was abused as a kid. I'm sure they think that.
No, of course they do. I'm sure they're all orphans.
No, I don't think they know he was abused. Like maybe they do.
Of
possibly.
course they do.
You might be right. They might be.
They're brothers.
They might know.
Chucky they all know.
Okay, but new people, and then for any woman in his life, Will is going to keep them at a distance, and he lies to Skylar to keep her from ever getting close to him because he's afraid of how she'll react if she finds out what his past is really like and who he really is, and that's why I think that's also why he is very, very reluctant to ever let anyone know how smart he is.
Yeah,
he's always trying to hide it.
That scene where he actually takes Skylar to meet the boys, and they go out to drinking, and with Chucky when he's telling Chucky, like, "Oh, you're driving home after they leave the bar," and Skylar's like, I thought we were going to stay at your place, and I thought I was going to meet your brothers. And Chucky's like, oh, you don't want to go to that one-bedroom spot. Like
he knows you dropped him like in a bit like a bad habit once he sees that one-room palace.
Exactly. So like that's a funny way to say what's going on in Will's mind, where if she sees that place, then she's never going to want to see me again. So I have to avoid that.
And he thinks that he has to be a certain way for her to, want to be with him. And that's why he's afraid of her learning the truth about him, because he thinks that if she finds everything out, if she sees his crappy apartment, she'll want to run away. And that's what he's more afraid of than anything. So because like we see his fear of abandonment, which Sean tells him about, which he already knows. Like,
I know
Will's smart. He's so intelligent. He already knows what's wrong with him. But that's the irony of the character. He knows exactly what's wrong with himself right from the movie starts. He knows everything, but he can't stop himself from acting that way, of putting up those defenses, of pushing people away on purpose, because that's just ingrained in his emotional psyche that I can't let anyone get close to me. So if anyone is coming close, I'm going to do whatever I can to self-sabotage that and make them want to leave or push them away.
Yeah, self-destruction is a major character trait of Will Hunting, but also I like to look at it as he approaches all of his relationships, besides the ones with like Chucky and the boys, as kind of the way he approaches mathematical equations, where maybe he doesn't want to solve them right away, which is why, Skylar, I don't want to call her on the second date when he has his session with Sean. He's like, oh, Christ, you're an amateur. Are you going to call her again? He's like, I don't know. This girl's perfect right now.
I know what I'm doing.
I've been late. Big time. Big time. Where Sean's like, why aren't you going to call her again? He's like, I don't know. She's perfect right now. I don't want to mess that up. Maybe he's approaching his relationships like math equations, where he's doing all the right moves to the point where he doesn't want it to fail. He's not trying to fail at solving the problem, but he's too afraid to finish the problem or finish the relationship.
I think that he does that with Skylar, not calling her and setting up a second date and not wanting to see her again because, like you said, he says she's perfect, because Will is on such another level from everybody, every single human being alive. He's on a different level from them. I think that when he spends enough time with people, he sees everything about them that is like lower than himself on an intelligence level. And since it's hard, like no one's his equal. Nobody alive is his equal. Lambeau is one of the smartest people alive, and Lambeau has a great line. There's only a few people who can tell the difference between you and I, and that difference is monumental because Lambeau can't even think about approaching the mathematics that is like child's play to Will. So I think that because Will is on such a high level of intellect, nobody comes even close to him. It's hard for him to develop a real relationship with someone who isn't on that same level as him. So I think that's why Skylar's perfect right now. I know very little about her. I don't know what she's really like, and I don't want to know because my fantasy of her is perfect. And he doesn't want to get intimate. He doesn't want to get personal because that will make him maybe not want to be with that person anymore because he wants the fantasy. He doesn't want the real thing because he is shutting himself off. He doesn't let anyone get close. He doesn't, and like Sean says, you don't know what it's like to look at a woman and feel completely vulnerable because he's never done that before. He's afraid of that. He doesn't understand that, you're not perfect. You got to be humble. You got to be modest, and you got to understand that everyone's like going day by day, and nobody is a perfect. Even a genius is not perfect. So Will is struggling with that, and that's why he doesn't want to see her for the second time.
I think it's that, and also the fear of abandonment and the pain he's gone through in his past, where the only family he knew growing up was pain and abuse from his orphan father, his foster father. And I think that's why Will doesn't want to go after his potential, and that's why he still hangs around with Chucky and the boys, because it's safe. They're loyal to him, like Sean says. They would take a bat to anybody's head in a second for him, and they're the only family he's ever really known, and he doesn't want to leave that. He's never left Boston. It's a safety net for him. And ironically, Chucky wants him to leave at some point, and but Chucky, he serves as that constant reminder to Will of his past and, again, his only source of family. And I love Chucky, played by Ben Affleck. I think he's super funny in this film. He's very wise, too. They have that great scene where they're talking about, towards the end of the film after Skylar's gone, where he's talking about, if you're still here in 20 years doing construction with me and going to Little League and we live next door, I'll fucking kill you. It's great because he understands that, like, you have something we all want. You're sitting on a lottery ticket, and it's more offensive to us for you to stay here with us than to go do something with it. We'll kill you if you do that. And Chucky's not jealous of Will. That's what I love about him. But he can't stand the fact that Will is going to waste this potential over self-pride.
It's a combination of pride and getting back to what you were just saying before, Chucky. He's afraid to challenge himself. Sean points it out. Like, you don't do anything to challenge yourself. Skylar points it out. Like, you're afraid to do anything that's difficult. You'll solve these problems in the shadows at MIT, but you won't let anyone know you did it, and you don't want to work or develop your talent, develop your skill, or try to do anything. You just want to coast in your safe place with your safe friends in your safe little apartment and never achieve anything. And that it's like fear's the mind killer. He's got this fear that prevents him from wanting to ever do anything and excel, better himself, and it all comes from the fear of challenging himself, and he doesn't want to do anything difficult because his past was so difficult. He went through so much trauma. He doesn't want to deal with any discomfort anymore. I don't think he wants to deal with anything that's psychologically troubling anymore. I think he just wants to take the easy path, the easy road, and just sit back and let life happen.
But also self-destructive elements as well, and character traits where he likes to fight, and his rap sheet after he gets arrested and he's sitting with the judge and he's going through his rap sheet, it's insane. He's like assault, armed robbery, or
impersonating an officer,
grand theft auto. And I love how he represents himself and incites laws and cases from like the 1800s. It's great, but it's still, the character's so complex where he would rather rot away in prison he almost would rather rot away in prison than do math and psychiatry with Sean Maguire and Lambeau.
Yeah, because
Sean Maguire.
I think he feels comfortable in prison because he doesn't have to do anything. Again, he doesn't have to challenge himself. He's in a safe spot, and he doesn't have to pretend he's something he's not. And so I think that in a crazy way, he kind of he accepts himself being in prison. It's just okay. Like, that's why he's like against going to therapy at first, and then Lambeau's like, it is better than prison, isn't it? And then it takes him that moment to realize, okay, I think if I can get out of here, I will.
Yeah, and Lambeau's a really good character. Stellan Skarsgård's a phenomenal actor. He was just, Baron.
Dude reference. There it is.
He's a highly accomplished mathematician and former college roommate of Sean Maguire, played by Robin Williams, who, he's trying to take Will under his wing academically. And Lambeau, he's kind of like Will. He's highly arrogant himself due to his accomplishments and his intellect. He's got the Fields Medal of mathematics. But we soon find out that in comparison, Lambeau's intellect is basically like a squirrel compared to Will Hunting. He's nothing. It takes him decades to even do something that Will can do in minutes. Those proofs that he tries to destroy with the fire. He's like, it took us 2 years to even fathom the idea to do this, and you can do it in just a few minutes. And so the intellect is so different. But there's also this early father-son dynamic that's going on where it seems, Lambeau does genuinely care for Will early on before he starts getting into more and more trouble after the sessions start. I think my favorite scene with Lambeau is towards the end of the film when when Will lights the papers on fire, the homework that he did for him, and he tries to blow it out. And he says, because the whole film, he seems so much more, he's trying to be more powerful than Will almost psychologically. He's trying to dominate him, but he really can't. But he seems just so weak and feeble compared to Will in this moment. He's on his hands and knees trying to blow out the fire.
You know how easy this is for me? This is a joke.
And I have to come here and watch you guys all fuck it up. And so...
Watch the language.
Sorry, you can blurb him out. I'm just being authentic to the film. And Lambeau's like, I wish that I never met... there are nights... I wish I never met somebody like you because then I could sleep at night because this is breaking him down more than it's probably breaking Will down.
Lambeau is a fascinating character, and that right there is important. It's vital to his character because the thing with Lambeau, as successful as he is, as accomplished as he is, as respected as he is, even before Will gets into his life, and then when Will does get into his life, he's like, I am nothing compared to this godlike intellect. But even before that, we learn that him and Sean were roommates, and we learn later in the film, Lambeau knows that Sean was smarter than him. He says, you were smarter than me then, you're smarter than me now. And so I think that Lambeau has intense insecurity, which is why he acts so confident, why he acts so arrogant, why he tries to act with a dominant persona, because he knows deep down he's really not, even though he has the awards and the respect, he really isn't the smartest person in the room, especially when Sean's in the room. He knows how much smarter Sean is than he is. And so I think he's always trying to make up for it with the way he behaves, trying to act like this larger-than-life figure because he understands I am actually I'm not the smartest person in the world. People think I am, and I think it's kind of like his own defense mechanism of since people think I'm super the smartest person alive, I have to act like I'm the smartest person alive.
Yeah, I think that's a great assessment. Nice job.
Thanks.
And obviously Sean, played by Robin Williams, is one of the best parts of this movie. He won the supporting actor for this. Probably his best role. I mean, you could argue in that monologue at the duck pond is just incredible. One of the best scenes ever. And he reminds me so much of William Keating in Dead Poets Society. It's kind of like if this was William Keating later on in life.
If he had a wife and she died? Yeah.
Well, you don't have to I mean, I guess.
I'm just saying.
Morbid, bruh.
Well, that's the character.
I know. But yeah, so Sean, because of the death of his wife, he didn't probably pursue his potential because of that. He's now seems to be an alcoholic, drinking himself alone every night. He's got a dish, his sink is full of dirty dishes. And he becomes Will's psychiatrist. He teaches at Bunker Hill Community College. Also
Bunker
Chill, kid. And community colleges in New England are different than other parts of the country. They're sort of like wouldn't be considered like a normal university or a normal college. You do get credits, but it's kind of like a stepping stone to get up to there. Whereas like on the West Coast, they're kind of they are treated as equal, I believe.
You can get legit credits on the West Coast, but on the East Coast, it's more of like if I get good grades for a year in community college, then I can get accepted into a good university.
Yeah, so I don't think all credits transfer, but I think some of them do, depending on the courses. Sean is also from Southeast, so he understands Will's life better than any of the other psychiatrists that are trying to see him. The hypnotists and, ooh, you really hypnotized me there. And Sean, he's sort of like Will, where they're both at these plateaus or walls in their lives. And what I love about their therapy is that they both transform and they both grow from being with each other.
In terms of Robin Williams in this film, he's the best actor. He gives one of the best performances you've seen in the last 30 years or so. And I do think that monologue at the pond is what got him his Oscar. It's really some of the best acting you'll see. And Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were very, very smart of how they wrote this script and the part of Sean. Now, when they approached writing the character, they didn't actually have a gender picked out in mind for the character. They just knew if we write a really juicy role, if we write an amazing part, that could really help us land a great actor or actress.
They called it their Harvey Keitel role.
Exactly. So Harvey Keitel, like helping Tarantino out with Reservoir Dogs, that's ultimately how Tarantino got Reservoir Dogs made once Harvey Keitel signed on. And the same thing happened here, where once Robin Williams signed on, that basically got the movie made. And he only signed on because the part was so well written and it's such a great character, he couldn't pass it up. And so it really worked out. And, you know, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, they wrote it like, they were like, we can write it this way, so like if Meryl Streep wants to do it, we can just change the gender to a female therapist, and vice versa. If it's an older person, we can change it. If it's a younger actor, we can change it for that. So they kept this part open-ended as a way to get a big star involved in the project, and ultimately paid off. And in terms of Matt Damon's success after this, he got the part of Saving Private Ryan because of making this movie. And what happened was they were on set filming, and Steven Spielberg was filming nearby in Massachusetts, and he went to visit the set because Spielberg and Gus Van Sant are friends, you know, great directors. And when Spielberg visited the set for Good Will Hunting, he and Matt Damon were talking and chatting, and he was watching him act, and they really hit it off. And Spielberg was like, you know, I'm working on this movie, and I'm looking for this part of this soldier named Ryan, and I feel like you are like exactly what I imagined the character to be like. And so Matt Damon got cast in Saving Private Ryan because Good Will Hunting got made. So in a way, Robin Williams facilitated and was the big catalyst for the success of Damon and Affleck.
Well, also, Spielberg wasn't expecting Matt Damon to become a huge movie star.
Yeah.
And then that kind of affected the film, you could say, when Saving Private Ryan came out after the release of Good Will Hunting, I believe,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so now they had a star where he wanted an unknown actor for the most part. But you know what? They both worked out pretty well in great films. And I love, love, love every scene that Will and Sean have together. I think they're the best parts of the movie. And I love their first meeting where, you know, Will has been to a couple therapists, and, you know, he's very defensive and basically makes fun of them and their profession in a way. And then I love his interactions with Sean just in their first one, where he's on the offensive, attacking the entire time like a dog ready to go, and doesn't give Sean really any time to try to analyze him. He just spends the whole time analyzing Sean instead. And it's really great scene. But I think as their relationship grows, you know, then they have the scene where they're the first person who talks loses, and that's after the duck pond scene, obviously, which is an incredible piece of dialogue from Robin Williams.
I want to say about the first scene, that's actually really great representation of therapy, because the first few sessions of therapists, they're in therapy, therapists try to do as much listening as they can so they can understand how the person they're treating thinks, what motivates them, how they're acting and behaving. So that really helps inform the therapist of how to approach their help, their work. And so I think that was a really great, accurate example of therapy of, like, obviously he's asking Will, pretty much letting him do all the talking and letting him present himself and his personality and how he's thinking. And that is, I think, super accurate.
Yeah, I've never done therapy. I don't know any therapists or anything, so I don't know what it's really like. And I don't know if the film's accurate in terms of the portrayal of the sessions, but I can say that it's, I think, the best in film I've seen in terms of an entertainment value and an emotional effect. I think that no other movie's done it better than Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, I've never done it either, so I can't attest to how accurate it all is, but I think they got pretty close. They had to have. It seems really great.
Yeah, but it seems, and also Sean's the only person that could have broke down Will and you know, got around to him, because I think that scene in the duck pond after he responds and it's basically a rebuttal to Will tearing his life apart after looking at the painting. It's really great because, you know, he analyzes and breaks down Will, which no one's ever done before, probably emotionally. Usually it's just physically people abusing Will, but now someone just broke him down psychologically.
It's really important and impactful on Will, because what Sean's doing in that scene is saying, it doesn't matter how smart you are. You've never done anything. It doesn't matter how intelligent your mind is, how vast your intellect is. You've never experienced anything in life. You've never left. And so Will has never been approached like that and never been told that in his entire life. You know, he knows he's an absolute genius and nobody is even close to his intellect, but Sean's right. He's never done anything. He's never experiencing anything unique in his life, in his world, and that really shatters Will.
Yeah, so it's like, what's the point of being a super genius if you don't do anything with it?
Yeah.
And all you do is read books.
And you think you know everything, but you don't know anything about life.
Yeah, And that's why he fell into
what a great scene.
that peaceful sleep.
I think it's time for our intermission.
I was just about to say that too. Let's head on in.
Wow, great minds think alike.
And we'll begin with our movie quote competition. So I have one from Tommy Stack.
Let's see, Tommy.
You were once a vegan, now you will be gone. Hold on, let me say it again. You were once a vegan, now you will be gone.
Be gone. Chicken isn't vegan?
Wait, was it gelato isn't vegan? It's milk and eggs, bitch.
Scott Pilgrim.
Yep. Love that movie.
Chicken isn't vegan? Here's my quote. If you want to be president, you can start a war, you can lie, you can cheat, you can bankrupt the country, but you can't F the interns. They'll get you for that.
Oh, I like this movie a lot. Ides of March.
Nice. Good one.
Great choice.
Yeah.
George Clooney, I think that's his best movie that he's directed.
Yeah, it could be.
Probably. Yeah. All right. Guess this movie release year. This is a Gus Van Sant film. Elephant.
2004.
2003.
Oh,
incredible, disturbing, dark movie. It's about the Columbine shooting.
No, not specifically.
But I mean,
it's an example of it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like an interpretation. It's an interpretation of the Columbine shooting.
Here's my movie release year. Rollerball, the James Caan one.
Oh, okay, James Caan. The original.
Yeah.
The sequel. I mean, the remake is pretty trash.
It's so bad.
Original is 1976.
75. You were so close.
I knew it was 70s.
We were both off by 1 year. We're getting better. We're getting pretty good.
You still have the worst guess.
No, you were. I had never even heard of that movie before. I had never even heard of it.
Who has the worst guess?
I had never even heard of
it's
it.
Not my problem.
Get out of here.
All right. Movie pop quiz time. Early in his career, Ben Affleck broke his ankle during a scene of an iconic movie and finished the scene out. What was the movie?
Early in his career, iconic movie. Okay.
Yeah, I threw in some hints in there.
Can you repeat it again?
Early in his career, Benjamin Affleck broke his ankle during a scene of an iconic film. What was the movie?
Armageddon.
No. Earlier.
Daredevil. Wait, no, earlier than Armageddon?
Yeah.
Hold on. It's not Good Will Hunting? Shoot, what did you do in between them?
Iconic movie.
Iconic movie? What was he in that was... Oh, was it Jay and Silent Bob?
No, it's not an iconic movie. It's way before that. Jay and Silent Bob.
I don't know.
Dazed and Confused.
Oh!
So he plays the bully, I think his name's O'Banion.
Yeah.
O'Banion. In the scene where he's about to hit one of the boys, the high schoolers, with the stick, the paddle, and the kids on the roof dump paint on him.
Uh-huh.
And then he has like an outrage,
a break,
an outburst, and he kicks, I think he kicks his car.
Uh-huh.
And he shattered his ankle. And then he finished the scene, and you can watch. He's like, his ankle, you can see, is like bent sideways.
Oof.
And he walks into his car and drives away. He finishes the scene up, but fortunately, that was the last scene that he shot.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, he shattered his ankle on that shot.
I totally blanked that he was in that movie.
Yeah,
I totally forgot.
It's an iconic movie.
It's great
Jay and
question.
Silent Bob.
No, the one in the mall.
Mall
Rats. Oh my god, I'm an idiot. It was Mall. I was thinking Mall Rats. Okay. Why do I even host a podcast?
I don't know, man.
I should leave.
I have no idea. I should find a co-host. New one.
Here's my quiz. Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and many upcoming famous lead actors were up for the lead role in one film. However, Brendan Fraser won the role. What was the movie?
I feel like it's a trap question.
A trap question? How?
It's not The Mummy. It's not The Mummy. Or is it The Mummy? Let's see. What was Brendan Fraser in earlier? That was really, really good. I mean, could it be The Mummy? Did you say Leo DiCaprio? All right. It's definitely not The Mummy then.
Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and a bunch of who ended up becoming great lead actors in Hollywood. They were all very young, and they were all up for this role. And Fraser got it, and it was like the most vied for role for people in that age.
The Mummy?
School Ties.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
But they're in it.
Yeah, they're all
Ben
in it.
and Matt's in it.
Yeah, but they all went up for the lead.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And then isn't Ethan
Chris
Hawke,
O'Donnell, Ethan Hawke. Yeah.
Man.
Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it.
Crap, dude.
Yeah. A bunch of great actors were in that movie.
It's a good one.
Thanks.
Classic.
Yeah.
All right. What do we got for hater of the week, man? Is it we got a real one?
Oh yeah, we got a real one.
We got some fun unsubscribed ones.
Of course we do.
Yeah, I love to hear these.
Of course. Let me pull them up. Okay, we got a couple of really bad haters today. I mean, this past week. There's one hater. I don't even want to mention it because he seems like a psychotic person who might give us like bad reviews.
Yeah, IMAX guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy. But I don't want to say his name
He
or
listens to the show.
Yeah, okay, yeah, he must not. But this guy was just like berating us about IMAX for the last 2 weeks. But on a clip I posted of Inception describing how Nolan really put a practical train in LA and drove it through the city, crashing into cars. It's not CGI. It's like he got a real freight train for that scene. And then Well It Hurts Me wrote, "It wasn't an actual train. It was a semi-truck with a train casing on top of it." And I wrote, "Bro, is there a train smashing into stuff or not?" I was like, "Come on, man. Just stop. Just stop." Okay, but then
it bashes into like 8 cars.
It's a real train. That's what I was saying. My God.
The thing is,
obviously we know a train has to have tracks to go. Obviously, we know that. And then got some fun unsubscribed ones here. Craig Coleman wrote, "This is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I'm so excited to listen to it today. If this is Ready Player One. If you both haven't read the book, then I will definitely be unsubscribed."
Anthony hasn't yet.
I have not. And then I made a post about the original Star Wars artwork, and Calm Bucket Co. wrote, "Are those illustrations in IMAX? Unsubscribed." And then Anthony DeMayonaise wrote, for Ready Player One, "But what if there were 2 players?" Unsubscribed.
Well, Ready Player 2, the book came out. I haven't read it. I've actually heard
bad things.
Very mixed reviews about Ready Player 2. So I don't know if I'll check it out maybe someday, but I recommend the first book big time if you haven't read it yet.
Big time.
All right, let's get into our biggest supporters for this episode. First, we want to thank Clay from Ironborn Forge Works, who made us an authentic Uruk-hai sword from Lord of the Rings. So the Uruk-hai, they have that very specific, scary-looking sword. He made a freaking giant iron sword of us for us.
If you're watching on YouTube, I have it right here on screen.
Yeah, Anthony has it on his hands. In his hands, it's insane. It's like 4 feet long, literally made of. It's literally a sword, Uruk-hai, with the big tip at the end that goes sideways. It's really, really cool. So thank you so much, Clay, for making that for us. We also have a bunch of excellent reviews. Here's a 5-star review that I like. Best movie podcast on the air from XDive4something X. This podcast is a must-listen for any movie fan out there. They are passionate about film, and the way they break down movies and dive into the details is outstanding. Give them a shot. I know you'll become a super fan. They do claim to be twins, but the one on the left is way hotter than the one on the right.
Oh, thanks.
That's why I picked it. Thank you, X.
Gonna feed that ego.
Thank you, XDive4something X.
Hey, I still love you.
Yeah, so this sword is sweet.
Let me get rid of it.
On this day in film history, today is November 8th. In 1999, The World Is Not Enough premiered. In 2000, How the Grinch Stole Christmas came out in 2000. 8 Mile came out in 2002. Thor: The Dark World came out in 2013. Let's do that line again. Thor: The Dark World came out in 2013. Klaus came out in 2019, or Klaus.
Oh, Klaus.
Santa Claus Origins. And Alex Trebek passed away in 2020. Rest in peace.
So sad.
My stream recommendation, started to butt in, is Succession. I think you've already brought this up, but I just started watching this per many recommendations. Incredible.
That was my streamer recommendation too.
No way.
Yeah.
And it's on HBO Max, right?
Oh yeah. It's amazing. You're all gonna check it out.
Because now that I have time to watch TV shows, a bunch of people have been asking us to check out Succession. It's incredible. So thank you so much for the recommendations. It's one of the best shows I've ever seen.
It's so amazing. It's the best show on TV right now.
All right, let's get back into Good Will Hunting. And what were we talking about? We were talking about Sean, played by Robin Williams, I believe.
We were.
And so where did we leave off, though? I can't remember.
Therapy sessions.
Therapy sessions. So again, the therapy sessions are incredible. And Sean, like Will, he has a lot of pain in his past. You know, his wife had cancer and was sick for I think 7 years total, is what he said. You know, and then he said like the first 5 years when it was tough, but then the last 2 years when it got really tough and really bad. And so because of the death of his wife, Sean, like I said, has become pretty much, you could say, an alcoholic. He's drinking himself to sleep probably every night alone, nothing around, just him and his thoughts with the alcohol in the bottle. And this trauma is haunting him, just like Will's childhood trauma haunts him as well. and they both need the other person in these therapy sessions to kind of be freed of their past and to move on with their lives. When Sean criticizes Will for, not wanting to get to know somebody, it's a super philosophy. You can go the rest of your life without ever knowing anybody. And then Will throws it back in his face for the same thing. And he's like, my wife's dead. He's like, so why not meet somebody new? He's like, my wife's dead. So they both have the same kind of problem where they don't want to meet new people. They don't want to experience life anymore.
And Sean also, he uses his own experiences to help Will understand things about himself. So, for example, when it comes to Skylar and Will thinking she's perfect and not wanting to go out with her again because he doesn't want to really get to know her, because then he's afraid that he's not going to like her. He's afraid that her perfect status will be reduced and then it won't work out. Sean tells a story about, his wife farting in bed and all her little picadillos, and these are like the little idiosyncrasies that only he knows about her. He's telling Will, like, the fantasy of a person isn't who you fall in love with. It's the intimacy and everything, every little thing about your partner, and even the things that are embarrassing, and even the things that sometimes you don't like, and those are the good things, you know what I mean? And he's trying to make Will understand that Skylar, she's perfect because you don't know her yet, and real intimacy comes from truly getting to know someone, truly experiencing life together as a partnership. And that really helps Will to understand that he needs to let Skylar in and actually form a real bond with her.
Yeah, Skylar's a great character too. Minnie Driver is exceptional in this movie.
I can't believe she didn't get nominated.
Yeah, she's so good in this. And I think that the way they meet, the way that Will meets Skylar, is kind of a reflection of his psychology of his life at that point, where he showcases his exceptional gifts to defend Chucky in front of the Harvard bully,
the ponytail,
and he shows his toughness for everybody to see. So he's like acting cool and tough. He asks him, "Oh, we can just step outside if you got a real problem."
No,
and then
no problem.
And Skylar clearly is interested in him. She's looking at him and watching him and is impressed, but Will chooses not to talk to her. And she, at the end of the night, goes up to him and is like, "You're an idiot. I've been over there at the end of the bar waiting for you to come talk to me the whole night, but now I'm tired and I have to go home." And she gives him her number. So that's kind of a great metaphor for the way he lives his life in terms of his genius.
That's a great point, because it's also his fear of challenging himself. It's challenging to walk up to a girl and try and talk to her, or anyone else you're interested in. You have to overcome that fear. And Will lets fear drive him, and he lets fear dominate his life. And so he doesn't like to he doesn't like to go up against fear. And so you're right. That's a great example of his personality in a nutshell. He's supremely confident. He can win any kind of mental battle. He's a loyal, great friend. He has a great morality and honor, but he's afraid to push himself.
Yeah, it's not that he's afraid to talk to a girl. It's that he's afraid of a girl getting to know him. That's what I think he's afraid of.
I think it's both. I think he's afraid of the challenge, of challenging himself.
I don't think. I disagree. I don't think he's afraid to talk to her. I think he doesn't want to get to know her.
How dare you disagree with me? How dare you?
But like Will and Sean, Skylar also has a past of trauma where her father died, and she's filled with pain and regret and all sorts of terrible emotions. Where'd I go with that sentence? She's filled with pain from that past trauma of her father passing, and Will uses her trust fund, or not her trust fund, her inheritance from her father's death as a weapon against her. At first he's like, "Oh, I'm sure they were happy to pay for it," and then he learns that it was an inheritance from her father, and that she's just a rich kid who came to Boston. She wants to go slumming with some kid from Southie. Whereas she tells him that, like, I would give that up in a second, all of that money that pays for my education, to have one more day with my father.
Yeah, he's judging her for something she never asked for. And he's throwing classism into the relationship. Like, I'm a lower class citizen, and you're a higher class citizen. So you're just dating me so you can tell your friends I went slumming too. So that means, like, I dated like a guy from the streets too. You know what I mean? So he's putting classism into the relationship, which is a terrible thing to do, and it's gonna divide them for sure.
Yeah, and Skylar is in love with him.
In love with herself.
Skylar's in love with Will. And, Will probably is in love with Skylar too, but he doesn't want to admit it. He doesn't even want to admit it to the audience or anything. And, halfway through when Skylar asks Will to come to California to go to San Francisco with her when she goes to school
Stanford.
Is that San Francisco?
Yeah.
And he turns it down and he doesn't want to go. And that's when he gets the defense mechanism up, and he tells her like the truth. Really, that's how the truth comes out about him being an orphan, how he was abused, how he was stabbed, how the guy put cigarettes out on him. And you don't want to hear that. And she says, I want to help you. I didn't think she mean it in the way, but by saying that, he's like, what am I, a charity case? And so he self-destructs pretty much every relationship he has besides the ones with Chucky and the boys.
He leaves her out of fear of her leaving him. That's like he walks out and lies and says he doesn't love her, which is a complete lie. And he leaves because he doesn't want her to leave him. And that's why when she first addresses the idea of moving to California together, he's immediately worried about, like, what if you find out something about me and you don't like me anymore and you want to get out of this relationship, then I'm stuck there. So he's immediately afraid of being left by her.
Yeah, he uses his genius intellect as a defense mechanism, as a weapon, basically. The same thing with when Lambeau sets up the psychologist appointments with him, he attacks all their methods and works. When Will clearly feels that Sean Maguire is probably the biggest threat he's faced so far, that's why he attacks him so much and completely destroys his life compared to just messing with the other psychiatrist. He really gets to he really tries to just go after Sean's internal psychological trauma and try to analyze it.
There's another great example of Lambeau's insecurity towards Will, and it's when he and Sean go to the bar to get some sandwiches, and they're trying to decide how to approach Will, and Lambeau is trying to force Will into doing work and getting your act together and get a job. And then Sean is trying to make Will slowly accept himself and accept his past and understand that nothing that happened was his fault, and make an emotional revelation. And that's the only way and Sean understands that's the only way that Will ever find success in life, not just monetary career success, but success as a human being. And so they're conflicting father figure views, and they do this bet with the bartender, and they ask the bartender, have you heard of Albert Einstein? And the other person, they say, and the bartender's like, yeah, of course. And then they ask the bartender, have you ever heard of Gerald Lambeau? So Lambeau, they're asking. And the bartender says, never heard of him. And so Lambeau, right there, he's literally self-deprecating himself, saying, I will never be someone that the entire world knows the name of.
So it's not about my arrogance.
No, what I'm saying is, what I'm getting at is, he understands that Will can be that kind of person, that kind of figure in the world, and that is part of why Lambeau hates knowing that Will is alive, because he will never, ever, people in his circle know who he is, people in the sciences, maths world, the STEM worlds know who he is, but the world will never know Lambeau's name.
Yeah, but the point of Lambeau bringing that up to the bartender is because I'm pretty sure Sean says something about it's not about your arrogance, and Lambeau's trying to be like, it's not about my name anymore. It's not about me. It's not about my name. Because see, this bartender doesn't know my name. I don't care about that anymore. I kind of just want to see. I think he really cares about that. That's why he can't. That's why he stays up. He can't sleep at night knowing that Will's alive. I don't think it's about like being famous or anything like that. I think that it's not about his arrogance. That's why he does that.
No, I think that Lambeau he wishes he was as famous as Einstein, is what I'm saying, and that's why he is so insecure of Will being alive and having to know that he exists.
But then the best part, I think, of that scene after that is when Sean brings up another name. He brings up the name of the Unabomber,
Mike Kaczynski,
who was Kaczynski, right?
Yeah.
Who was like very
Ted Kaczynski.
He was a prodigy. He's a very accomplished student and everything, and then he went off and became a murderer. And so what Sean's doing is like, I'm not saying that Will's going to become a murderer, but do you want to set him off? Like, this kind of person, if you mess with him the wrong way, or if you push him in the wrong direction, or maybe when he's not ready, pushing him that way, what could happen? Like, it could be worse than an average person kind of just having a breakdown.
Yeah, Lambeau wants Will to be a historical figure, someone who can impact the world in such a big way that everyone knows his name. And then Sean is the opposite, saying, what if he doesn't want to do that? What if that's not who he wants to be? He has a right to reject that, although he shouldn't be throwing his life away, but he definitely has a right to reject having to be this historical figure that you have him set out to be in your mind.
It's almost like a father-mother relationship where like Sean's like the more nurturing, motherly kind of personality, whereas Lambeau is like the father, kind of like being more aggressive in terms of pushing them towards a specific. But the complexity of Will is, you know, the amount of potential he has, and he's starting to develop these relationships, and it seems like the therapy's working. You know, he's been going on dates with Skylar, and then that's when he starts to self-destruct and throws everything away. He destroys his relationship with Skylar, he destroys his relationship with Lambeau, and it's really only his relationship with Sean that's kind of keeping him afloat, you could say, and also Chucky and the boys and Morgan and everything. But him and Sean have become friends, and you know, it gets to the point where after Lambeau and Sean have that conversation at the bar with the sandwiches, where now Sean kind of has to expedite things a little bit. He's trying to get him to either, you have to decide what you want to do with your life. You know, you don't have to do these jobs, but you have to choose soon. You can't do this forever. You just turned 21 almost, or you're turning 21.
He keeps asking, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And he's like, you can't even give me a simple answer. You can't even answer that simple question.
So it's kind of like, you could say, maybe Will looks at it as sort of an attack on him, where like, I thought we were friends. Like, why are you doing this to me? You're doing it just like everybody else. And what if I'm not ready to move on? I'm not ready to change, and I'm not ready to take a leap somewhere.
Exactly. And it leads to the emotional breakthrough that Will needed, and also Sean needed as well. And it's one of the best scenes of the film. And I always cry when I see the scene of Will breaking down when Sean, he's got his file. He's like, what's it saying? It Will has abandonment issues, you know, self-sabotaged. And Sean's like, yeah. But then he goes up to Will, it's not your fault, over and over again, it's not your fault. And then Will like chuckles at it at first, but then he starts breaking down and eventually starts crying. And then you finally see Will embrace his vulnerability. You finally see Will completely let himself open up, and his emotion pours out of him. And it's such a powerful scene. Matt Damon just clutching Robin Williams' body and just weeping into his arms is amazing.
Yeah, and I love the way that Gus filmed this scene. And when I watch it, I always just I don't see Will Hunting as an adult anymore. I always see Will Hunting as a child right there, like a little boy, clutching onto a father figure, just trying to let all the pain out of that he's been holding in for so long. So he's basically like a little boy crying right there. That's what it seems like.
Sean's the first like real father he's ever had, which is why when therapy's over, he's like, I hope we can, you know, stay in touch. And then Sean's like, yeah, I hope the same. And so I think that Sean will be Will's father figure for the rest of his life, you can say.
And so that's one of the best scenes ever. And I love before that session starts where Lambeau and Sean kind of have their final fight where they're going back and forth, and, you know, and Lambeau is like, oh, it's all about my medal and everything. I knew you could have it. I'll go home and get it. You can have the medal.
Great Stellan impression.
But, you know, that's where Sean's trying to convince him it's not about you. It's not about what you want. It's about what the boy wants, and we can't push him too hard. And eventually I love how they make up to and they get along later.
Well, yeah, they haven't overcome their past. You know what I mean? And Lambeau obviously is still jealous about how Sean is the better mind than he is. And then Sean says he doesn't care about the medal and he doesn't care about success, but I think parts of him really do, because like the first time Lambeau sees Sean when he walks into his classroom, the first thing Sean says to his class is that, oh, he's the Fields Medal winner. Like, this is the first thing he mentions to the class. He didn't have to.
We're in the presence of greatness.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that Sean, it's in the back of his mind, Lambeau winning the medal. And also Sean is dealing with, I know he doesn't regret his wife and he doesn't regret what he does, but I think in the back of his mind, he's like, he knows of his untapped potential. He knows of what he could have done. So you can't blame him for like that being in the back of his head, I think. And so he's always kind of dealing with that whenever he sees Lambeau.
And that's why he's so attached to Will and so interested and fascinating in the character, because just like Sean, Will has immense untapped potential as well.
Exactly. So I think that Sean is always battling with that idea that I didn't become what I could have, and my friend became that. And so whenever he sees Lambeau, it's a reminder of that. Yeah. So they have a very complex relationship where Lambeau knows that I achieved all this stuff, but I'm not as smart as Sean is.
Yeah, but again, it's not because he regrets not achieving that potential. It's the same thing how he doesn't regret missing that Red Sox game where Pudge hits the home run. I didn't know Pudge was going to hit a homer in Game 6, and obviously the Red Sox didn't win the World Series or anything.
It's just the ALCS. What was the World Series? Yeah.
But and then he doesn't regret that. He doesn't regret the cancer and the years that he had to be by his wife's side, so he doesn't regret anything really. It's just like you said, it's kind of just in the back of his head as a reminder, and every time he sees Lambeau, he's reminded of, you know, what Lambeau achieved, what he could have achieved.
Yeah, so all these characters they overcome their past trauma and their past difficulties unsolved issues in this film, except for the crew, because you could say they're just like
Chilling.
They accepted their lives.
Yeah, Chucky's like, I'm gonna be here for 20 years. I'll be doing the same thing, and that's fine. That's okay. But you're sitting on a winning lottery ticket. If you don't get the fuck out of here, I'll kill you. I'll kill you. What are you talking about? We'll be taking our kids down to Little League. We'll live next to each other. We'll love Chucky in this movie. So funny.
You just love Ben Affleck.
I do love Ben Affleck. As soon as we watched it last week, I was like, "It's Ben!"
You light up when you see him. You look at you. You're glowing. Your smile is so big.
That is the lighting.
Talking about Ben Affleck, you're like a proud father talking about how your son just walked for the first time.
It's a pretty big deal.
Betty. Oh, Benjamin.
I love Ben.
Good Will Hunting is one of my favorite movies. It really is. No matter how many times I see it, I just we watched it the other day to prepare for it. And once it started, I was like, I'm just gonna watch 15 minutes, then I'm gonna go watch something else because I've seen it 30 times. And then when it started playing, I was like, all right, I'll be here for 2 hours.
It's so good, and obviously we really only talked about the dramatic elements of it, but it's so funny. It is laugh out loud funny, and there's so many iconic scenes like the Harvard bar scene, which is like the pop culture of this film. It's still relevant in terms of like that scene, and again, it was in Jay and Silent Bob where they reenacted it. Sort of, it's like hunting season again. And then the How You Like Them Apples, that is still relevant in pop culture. It's still used.
The sandwich, I'm gonna put your sandwich on layaway.
Yeah, it's so
give me your
funny.
16 cents.
Not in my Little League glove.
The banter between the friends.
If you're gonna watch, you gotta stop watching pornos in my mother's room. You got another room with a VCR?
It's the only place with a VCR.
The car.
And Cole Hauser is awesome.
Yeah.
He actually asked to get most of his dialogue removed and given to Morgan.
Casey Affleck.
Yeah, because he had an idea of portraying this character who's like super quiet. And whenever you're watching the scene of the crew, Cole Hauser's always in the shot, and he's actually doing so much in his role with like very minimal dialogue. And he like seems like he's just like a real part of this gang, like this guy who's just, going day by day. He drinks a lot, and life's tough. And I think he represents that realistic view of like, life can be difficult, but I'm dealing with it. You know what I mean? I think he's amazing in this movie.
And the comedy, it really helps keep this movie going because I love dramatic films, but I think the comedy just keeps it more upbeat and keeps the energy of the film alive. And I mean, putting your sandwich on layaway, retainer. You suspect. I was just saying your interest would be improved if I had $200 in my pocket right now.
The uncle story and then the old couple Patty story.
Yeah, from Minnie Driver's character.
Give us a kiss.
Oh, Maddie, that's the most amazing entire
earth-shattering thing.
I want a blowjob.
It's great.
It's such a funny movie.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the Harvard bar, huh? So good. But yeah, overall,
we adore this.
Top 20 in my list. It's probably my top 20 for sure.
Amazing.
Love. We used to watch this all the time when we were kids.
All right, so who do you think is the MVP of this movie?
Oh, it's got to be Matt.
Nice pick.
Matt Damon.
I would say Matt because he wrote it as well. So it's got to be Matt for the MVP.
Yeah, co-writing, then acting. His performance is incredible. He's in almost every scene,
What is the best scene?
I think the best scene is the breakthrough.
That's a good one, yeah. I think
it's not your fault.
Yeah, I think I could go with that one too.
I love the baseball story too.
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say the breakthrough scene is my favorite. Who's the best actor?
It's got to be Robin Williams, 100%.
Yeah, got to give it to Robin. Robin stole it.
My God. And now we will do our top tier Patreon shout out. Thank you to all patrons for your support. Justin, Caleb Fleming, Michael Karanja, Nate Moore, Harry Roscoe, Caitlin Signorelli, Travis Ball, Nikayla Simeona, Jacob Kossler, Jorge Chavez, Caleb McFalls, Ken Bolin, Dennis, Sal Guanera, Max Rosk, Justin T. Frank, Lauren Smertz, Grayson Younts, Cole Carroll, Christopher Tunnel, Tanner Teagarden, Madison Hadamio, Barrett Compton, Andy Walker, TJ Rollins, Andrew Lukler, Christian Carter, Nicholas Ozaniak, Timon Hayashi, Caitlin Callahan, Sarai Rogers, Charles McLaughlin, Brandon Smith, Ethan Storm, Devin Udarium, Derek Noonan, Mariam Ally, Brooke Shanks, Stephen Gaidos, Simon Tews, Brittany Underwood, Jeremy Slattery, Jeremy Benavidez, Cody Moan, Samantha Steele, Frank Caraglio, Michael Kelly, Josh Coburn, Joe Lopez, Rachel Von Den Heuvel, Kayla McCoy, Brian Barton, Archie Owen, Derek Perkins, Daniel a.k.a. Just Dan the Man, Olivia Piccini, Megan Costa, Chris Farmer, Patrick Clausen, Desiree Gonzalez, Luke Clark, Joanna Tronina, Anthony Lampares, Colleen Medlar, Matthew Fires, Britton Bomber, Ariel Tranquil, Spencer Pike, Anthony Farmer, Lauren Kimberly, Maxwell McCree, Gabriel Townsend, Hayden Hensley, Odin Childs, Evan Smith, Leslie Miranda, Casey McWheels, Tom Collum ×2, Adam Beardsley, Anthony DeMeo, Melissa Colguin, Andrew Hagan, Connor Bird, Andres Sanchez, Janice aka Jay Nice, Colin Coward, William Smith, Angel Godoy, Will Shaw, Gabe Beckles, Patrick Herber, Joe Treniello, Christopher Leon, Adam Flanagan, Jason Barnes, Brendan Dowler, Isaiah Argue, Raul Garcia, Rocky Troop, and Dylan Workus. Thank you so much to our top tier patrons. All patrons, we are grateful for your support.
Okay. Want to do some trivia?
Let's do it.
In 2014, after Robin Williams died, the bench in the Boston Public Garden where he and Matt Damon had their conversation scene became an impromptu memorial site. People left flowers, quotes, and various items at the bench. A petition was even passed around to erect a statue in Williams' memory near the bench.
On the very first day of filming Good Will Hunting, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck started crying out of happiness because it was a scene between Robin Williams and Stellan Skarsgård, accomplished actors, doing Matt Damon's and Ben Affleck's scene that they wrote verbatim, and they had waited to make this film for over 5 years, and it had finally happened.
The lines in the scene where Sean talks about his late wife's farting were ad-libbed by Robin Williams. That's why Matt Damon is laughing so hard in the scene. And if you watch carefully, you can notice that the camera actually shakes a bit. This is because the cameraman was laughing hard as well and shook the camera while they were filming. When Robin Williams and Matt Damon were shooting their scene on the bench at the Public Garden in Boston, they thought they would be the only people around the area in the park during filming. However, due to Robin Williams' gigantic stardom, at one point over 3,000 people were at the location watching them film the scene.
After Matt Damon and Ben Affleck sold their Good Will Hunting script to Castle Rock, it was printed in Daily Variety that they were going to get $600,000 for it. By using a copy of Daily Variety, because Ben Affleck and Matt Damon had no credit at the time, they rented a house that was $3,000 a month, so they had to use that to show that they had money and income. And I believe it was in Eagle Rock that they rented the house.
Yeah, Eagle Rock. Ben Affleck was only 25 years old when he won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for this film, making him the youngest person ever to win that award. Matt Damon was 27 years old when they won as well. The final scene when Sean picks up the letter in his mailbox and sees Will's note, Sean replies, "He stole my line." That was improvised by Robin Williams. It was not in the script, and the filmmaker and Matt Damon knew right when he said it that it had to be put in the movie.
Ben Affleck's father and stepmother worked as janitors at Harvard University. In 2000, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon spoke at a rally at Harvard University in support of increased living wages for all workers on campus. Ben Affleck narrates a documentary, Occupation, about a sit-in organization by the Harvard Living Wage Campaign. All right, everybody, that wraps our episode on Good Will Hunting. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we had making it, because we love this film so much. So thanks so much for tuning in around the world. If you're a patron, we really appreciate it so much. If you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. And you're the best. Thank you so much.
How you like them apples?
See you later, kid. Thanks so much for tuning in to Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Be sure to subscribe if you're new. Hit the like button, leave a comment. Find us on all audio streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us. Find us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Be sure to check out one of these other videos right here for more content on our favorite films and breaking down all kinds of movie content. Thanks so much.